So, like there's books out there like The Secret, for example. That's the most notorious one. And I say notorious because it's probably the book that sold the most amount of copies ever on the subject of the law of attraction. But it's also probably the absolute worst book you could possibly read on the law of attraction. And that's because it's so oversimplified, it really doesn't explain anything about how it actually works, right? It's more just new age, naive, positive thinking. Bullshit, really, that actually makes your reality worse because you're not accepting the negative, right? Which is a very important part of the process. Now, the law of attraction in and of itself, right? And then throughout history, there have been many authors that have described it as a 2-step process, a 3-step process, a 4-step process. I've come to discover it's actually a 5-step process. So here's how it originally started, and this was back in the day of Napoleon Hill, who wrote the book Think and Grow Rich, as well as the book The Laws of Success, which is the original version of that. He described it as a 3-step process, or there's 3 aspects of the mind that are at play, right? So you have your conscious awareness, and you have your subconscious awareness, and then you have the collective unconscious, right? And I'm not even sure he got into the collective unconscious. That's kind of just the bit that I throw into it, I suppose, in my interpretation of it. But basically, as Carnegie was mentioning to him, right, the mind works in so much that the conscious mind, the one that you use to think with, programs the subconscious mind, right? And the subconscious mind is what dictates your actions and behaviors in life. And those actions and behaviors are what attract people, circumstances, objects of interest to you, right? Based on what that mental program has been programmed to do, right? And so that's how it all started, was you have to program your subconscious mind in order to program yourself with certain habits in order to attract yourself to the right circumstances, people, places, things, and times. But then somebody, realized that, okay, this could be broken down into a 4-step system where your thoughts are what do the programming, right? And the thoughts that you have the most often program your mind. So program your habits. Your habits dictate your actions, that's step 3. And your actions determine your circumstances, that's step 4, right? The problem is the circuit isn't yet complete, right? Everybody thinks that by changing one of these 4 things, they can change their emotional state, right? If you're perpetually unhappy and you've read any of these books, you might be under the interpretation that all I have to do is change my circumstance to change my emotion. And in order to change my circumstance, you might be under the impression that I have to change my actions and behaviors. And if you studied enough, you might be under the impression that you have to change your mental programs in order to change your actions and behaviors. And if you've studied enough, you understand that you have to change your thoughts in order to change your mental programs, in order to change your action behaviors, in order to change your circumstances, in order to change your emotions. But that's still backwards thinking, okay? Because where do the thoughts come from? Step 1. The thoughts come from your emotions, right? Emotions don't come from your thoughts. They don't come from your programs, they don't come from your actions, and they don't come from your circumstances, right? Your circumstances do cause you to feel emotions, yes, but they only cause you to feel the emotion that started the cycle in the first place as a way of reinforcing the cycle to keep it going, right? Because this is the way the law of nature works. Once a cycle is initiated, it wants to keep going, right? It wants to perpetuate itself, right? The only way to change the cycle is to change that which starts the cycle. And the cycle doesn't start with circumstances. It doesn't start with actions. It doesn't start with habits. It doesn't start with thoughts. It starts with emotions. When you change your emotions, you change the thoughts that you have the most often. And therefore you change the habits you program. And therefore you change your habitual actions and behaviors, and therefore you thus change your circumstances, which now reconfirm the new emotion that initiated the cycle. Okay? This is how the law of attraction really works. The mindset begins with the proper emotion, right? Now let's talk about emotions for a bit. You're going to have circumstances, or you're going to make realizations as you learn about things in reality, such as pedophilia or government corruption or international business corruption or whatever the case may be, that are going to make you feel negative emotions. Okay? That doesn't necessarily mean that it's part of a cycle of negative emotions, right? You should know what's part of a cycle and what's just something out there that's causing a negative emotion, right? You should be able to discern that difference within yourself, right? These negative emotions are there to tell you what you don't like so that you can work to change them, right? But you can't change them by continuing to feel that negative emotion over and over again, right? When you focus on that negative emotion and you tune into the thoughts that are associated with that negative emotion and you program your mind with those thoughts and therefore behave on those thoughts, then you keep creating that circumstance now, right? And that's what makes the law of attraction so difficult to master, right? The negative emotion is there to tell us what we want to change. Once we know what we want to change, we have to figure out how to change it, right? In order to figure out how to change it, we have to tap into our positive emotions and use those positive emotions to help us find solutions. And use those solutions, right? Once we have that positive emotion going on, we can use our thinking process within the realm of positive emotion to find solutions, to reprogram our habits, to reprogram our actions, to change our circumstances. That's the proper use of the law of attraction. It all starts with your emotional mindset.